Hey guys, it's Joseph, J-Took with Moonlit Moth Creations, and I was just sitting here and I was thinking about stitches. Imagine that. And a particular stitch type or stitch pattern, if you'd like to call it that, popped into my head, and it was something that I'll be working into a project idea I have coming up, so I thought that I would just take a moment to come and bring you guys the rice stitch. I think it's a lovely stitch pattern, and it's something that is not overly difficult. It is very basic. If you can do a chain, and you can do half doubles and double crochets, you can do the rice stitch. So I just wanted to kind of, I think I'm going to show you my way, how I do it. I know there's a bunch of tutorials out there and things like that for that particular stitch and all the stitches, but one more can never hurt. So with that, let's go over to my stitching table and we'll go over it, okay? Okay, everybody, let's go ahead and take a look at this rice stitch, shall we? And for the purposes of this, I'm just using this is Red Heart Super Saver. I can't recall the color, but it is a 4-weight yarn. This is by no means the yarn that you have to use for this. You can do this stitch pattern with any yarn, but this is what I'll be using for the purposes of the tutorial. And then I'm using a Susan Bates J, and that is a 6mm hook. But of course you can, adapt for whatever hook size fits the yarn that you are using. So to start, we'll need to make our chain row, but to begin that, we're just going to do a slip stitch, and I'll show you how I do mine. I lay it over my hand here, and then I take my yarn and I wrap my finger twice, and then this back loop, I just pull forward over the front one, and then I take that one, slip it over the tip of my finger and down, and then you can pull both your ends, and there you can slip that on your hook. And then the tail, when you pull it, you can tighten that down on your hook like so. And there you're ready to start your chain. Now, standard chains, which has never been my favorite thing. I started out doing it like this and pulling, and my chain was always very strange. So I have learned that this is the way. So you will hold your yarn. I always hold the tail here, especially at the beginning. It just makes it a lot simpler. I go under and over, and when I grab it this way and pull through, it makes for a much neater chain. Sorry. And for this, you will need an odd number of chain. So however long you are wanting to do your project, just make sure that you are working with odd numbers. Let's see, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add a 12th, because that will be my chain to take me into my first stitch. So we're going to ignore this first chain space here, and we are going to work into the next one. And I like to work into these, when you look at the top of your chain where your V's are, you see it's like that. I like to work in to this bottom here. See this little loop there on the back side, and each chain has one. So I like it there. That way, whenever you go to, if you're making something where you're going to put a border, it just makes it that much easier to do your stitches for your border. So what we're going to do is I'm going to loop over. And like I said, we're ignoring this first one. We're going to go into the second one, and we're going to put a double crochet. And you may have to finagle with it. And then I pick up my yarn, I pull through, that gives me 3 on my hook, and then I bring the yarn over, pull through 2, over again, and pull through 2, and that is our first double. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to put a double crochet into each one of these little back bumps. See, there's the second one. So over, watch it, watch and make sure where the next one is. I can see mine there. And then I take and I go through, see I'm through, and then I cast my yarn on. You may pick yours up differently, but this is the way that I do mine. And then I pull through, that's 3, and I go over, pull through 2, go over, and pull through 2 to finish my stitch. Okay, and we will carry that through to the end of our chain row, and then I will join you back at the end. Okay, and there we are at the end of our row, and for my purposes here on this tutorial, I have 11 stitches because this chain space on the end where we made our initial turn does not count as a stitch. You start counting at your first official double. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, of course, your project will likely have more if you are working this into an actual project. Mine is just this size because this is a learning swatch. But you will want to make sure that you do have 11, not 11, I have 11. You will make sure that you have an odd number of stitches. That's important. So whatever multiple you use, just make sure that it does end in an odd number. You don't want an even number of stitches because it will not come out correctly if you do. But, so there, and then we're at the end of our row. So I am going to chain 1, which is not going to count as our stitch, and then I'm going to turn my work. And then we're on the back side of our stitches. And what I'm going to do here, and what we will do at the beginning and the end of every row for this rice stitch pattern, is it will begin with a half double. So I loop over, F2, and then I'm going to go through that very first top of that stitch. So the stitch where our chain was at, I'm going to go through that. I'm going to pick up my yarn. See, I'm picking it up back there. I'm going to pull through, and I have 3 on my hook. Then I come over and just pull through all 3 at the same time. And there is our beginning half double. Then what we're going to do, this stitch pattern is a repeated series of front post and back post doubles. So now that we have our first stitch, which is that half double, we're going to bring it over, and then here in this next stitch, so not our first one here, but this next stitch, so you see it there, we are going to do front post on that, and you will start every single row with front post double. So what we're going to do, I've already cast it on, loop there. I'm going to come through the front between these 2 stitches. See the space between the first one and then our next stitch here? I'm going to go into that space and come through where I've picked up just through that first double, and then I'm going to pick up my yarn. So you saw, I'll do it again. I wrap, pull through, and you have 3 on your hook, and then you are going to complete a double crochet just like so. And there is our first one. Don't worry if it's a little wonky at first, it will straighten out, and I will show you how to make that happen. So here, we're going to do the next one. So I wrapped over, and it's going to be a back post. So what we're gonna do, that next stitch there, we're actually going to come in from behind. See, behind like that. We're going to pick up our yarn, pull through, 3 on the hook. We will do our double crochet, my yarn is a little puffier. If you use a thinner one, it will work, but it will all come together. Trust the process. So we are going to pick up another loop to move to our next stitch, and we can see our next stitch there, right there, and we're going to do front post double. So back through underneath, we're going to pick up our yarn, we're going to pull through, 3 on, cast over, pull through 2, cast over, pull through 2, and there is our third part of the pattern. And so we're going to alternate that back and forth on our first row. And I promise, after the first row here, this does get simpler. Any stitch pattern, if you're doing a full work with it, is it's most complicated working on that first row, because there's less to hold on to. You don't have as much to weight yourself down and keep yourself guided. But after it gets going a little bit, you will see that it gets much simpler and a lot less fiddly. So remember, you always start half double. We do front post, then a back post, front post, back post, and we keep repeating that pattern until we get down here to the end. I will stay on camera with you, and we will continue on down, and I will show you what we do at the end. And you can kind of see me here just sort of massaging those stitches in just to keep it straightened out, because it is that beginning row. And I will say, the looser you make your chain, the easier you'll make life on yourself here. You can actually make it easier by, if you start your chain with one size hook larger than what you're going to work your project with, that will help make your chain looser. Here I didn't, I used just this J for the entire thing, but you can take and use one size up hook for your chain and then switch over to your project working size hook once you turn and start your initial row. That's always a good tip there. So I'm going to keep going with these, if I can see where I'm at. Okay. I'm on a front post. And back post. And then, okay, now we are at the end of this first row. This can be a little bit tricky or finagly at times, especially once you get it, and I will show you coming up, but make sure, because the last 2 stitches can sometimes be difficult to sort out and see the difference. You can see there, that is the next stitch to be working into, the one right before the end, and I will front post into that. And then here is where it can get a little twisty, so you'll want to make sure that you sort of use your fingers, straighten that out so that you can see the top where you will do your double. Sorry, let's reverse that. We're not ending with a double, we're ending with a half double. That was my mistake. So here, we will come in to the stitch, pick up, pull through, we have 3 on the hook, and then through all 3 at once. So that is our beginning row, and at this point you can take it, it's easier to do it once you get a little more stitches on, but you can take and pull the stitch pattern just like this, kind of pulling your doubles into place, and it sort of helps lock them in and make the beginning of your pattern a little bit more easy to see. So we are going to put our hook back in after I just did that. We are going to chain 1 at the end. Again, that does not count as a stitch. We're going to turn our work. Sorry, I'm using a little bit bulkier yarn, so it is a little bit more difficult to see. I apologize for that. But now we are going to do a half double, because we will always start the half double in that very first stitch there. And then now we are ready to begin our row. Front post, which I want to show you for a second. So since we are on the back side of the work, and you will still always start with front post after our half double, but you may have to look in there, especially at the beginning, before things kind of level out once you get some, like several rows built in, and it becomes a little easier. This row you may have to watch and make sure where you can find your stitches. So you can see mine in there, right there. It is right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in for a front post. So I go through that just like I did on the other side. I just had to dig a little more for it because it is reversed here now, but that is okay, and it will all work out. And we are doing our doubles there. And then next one, because we're still alternating, we back post. So you dig in there, bring your yarn through, and continue the same pattern just like you did on the front, but now you're doing it on the back. So just make sure you find your stitches. You don't want to skip stitches, that can throw the pattern off. Pull through. And we keep going with our doubles. And like I said, as we go and as the project gets bigger and there's more stitches in place and the pattern continues, stitching it will get easier. Not only because you'll be more practiced in the stitch, but also just because the more fabric is made there, the easier it is because it gets more weight, it pulls itself kind of into place, makes it a little easier to work. So yeah, don't get discouraged. Everything will be just fine. It's just yarn, and it will do what we tell it to do. Sure, we might have to tell it a couple times, but if we keep trying, I promise you will get it. No problems. So we're just continuing what we're doing, carrying our pattern, front post, then a back post, front post, then a back post. And now here, how I mentioned before that this stitch can be tricky to find at the end because you're coming into a half double. You want to make sure when you're separating that out, do not work your stitch in here to this. You want to come in between the stitches fully because that is still part of this top loop system. So you're going to want to work in at this very end, that right down there. So see, a little hole there. So in, and then you will come back out and make sure that you're not in this top space, that you're in the bottom down here. And then if you're sure of that, then complete your double as you would and as you have been doing. And then we are going to end here in this last stitch space with a half double. So you'll start with half doubles and you'll end with half doubles. See? And there we are. There's another row completed. And you can kind of smudge this around, pull it into place, and you can see the pattern starting to form. And then you will just repeat that over and over for whatever size of the project or however many rows if you're doing a multi-stitch pattern project. And then again, at the end, just one more time, you will chain one, turn your work, pick up half double in that very first stitch right there, pull through to complete your half double, pick up. You always start with front post, complete your double, pick up. The next one is a back post. Oop. And then you continue your pattern on, and at the end of it, you will have the rice stitch. You can use, like I said, any yarn. I use this Red Heart Super Saver for the purpose of showing the stitch. I think this is a stitch, in my opinion, that showcases at its best with a softer yarn. So if you were using you know, a similar value yarn to Red Heart, you could maybe a Mainstays no pill, where it's really soft and smooth. You can use like I said, any yarn, but I think that the smoother and softer the yarn, and also it may benefit if you are someone who can use a DK weight. I think DK would work really well in this stitch. So that is a number 3 weight for those people who are interested, but those are just my my opinion, and I may be a little biased because I do work a lot in DK, but yeah, I think that it's a very nice stitch pattern. And once you get that worked into a larger thing, if you did say a blanket or a scarf or something, once you get that in and the pattern really is able to show, like, fully reflect itself, it is just a really, really nice stitch pattern to use. And it's something that looks intermediate or looks advanced when it's finished, but you guys saw it's literally just half doubles and doubles, but worked front post and back post. So overall, not too complicated. Don't let it mix you up. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it, and we can do it. So yeah, I just wanted to take a minute and show you guys that stitch. I hope that that in some way helped somebody or you enjoyed watching. If you did, make sure hit that subscribe button, the notification bell to see more. I have more stitch tutorials coming up, as well as a bunch of other content. Click that like button. The thumbs are free and they make a world of difference. Leave me comments if you have questions or tips or pointers that you would like to share. I'm sure everybody would like to see those. I know I would. I enjoy reading all of the comments. But thank you very much, and I will see you next time.